You are going to learn all about prenatal nutrition in this episode with pregnancy dietitian Stephanie Lauri. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey, real quick, before we get into this episode, my new and improved online birth course, The Birth with Power Pathway, is coming in May. If you want to feel calm, confident, and actually prepared for your hospital birth, this is for you. The best way to be the first to know when it drops, join my email list at drnicolerankins.com/email. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 141. Thank you for being here with me today. In today's episode, we have Stephanie Lauri. Stephanie is a registered dietitian, certified lactation educator, and a mom to 2 girls who are 3 and 1. Throughout her first pregnancy, she was really surprised at the minimal focus there was on nutrition during this really important critical stage of life. She also found that as a dietitian, she was sought out a lot by her other pregnant friends for her guidance. It was because of this, that combination of being surprised at the lack of focus during her own pregnancy, as well as her friends seeking her out, that led her to know that she wanted to become a resource for pregnant women. And now she does so for pregnant women worldwide to help them gain confidence in their food choices throughout their own pregnancy journey. She really helps women across the globe who struggle with anxiety and uncertainty around knowing what to eat, and to help them feel confident and empowered in their food choices for both mom and baby and feel their absolute best throughout their pregnancy. She shares a lot of information on Instagram, where she has over 23,000 followers. She's there at pregnancy_nutritionist. And of course, we'll link that in the show notes. So in this episode, we talk about the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian. I was surprised by that. We talk about choosing a prenatal vitamin, a couple of powerhouse foods for pregnancy that are really great, why you should not focus on your weight during your pregnancy, some recommendations for vegetarians, some recommendations for folks who have anemia, and much, much more. So I know that you are going to learn a lot about how to have great nutrition and great diet during your pregnancy. Now, at the time this episode is airing, it is the day after I did my brand new live class, Make a Birth Plan the Right Way. And I created this class because, I decided to pull back the curtain on really going all in and helping women have the experience they deserve by really speaking the truth about the system that they're giving birth in. The reality is that the U.S. maternity system is one that was founded in a system of patriarchy, taking away power from women over what happens in their bodies, and racism. Now, we have come a long way and we've made lots of strides and progress, and it's not all bad. In fact, it is quite possible for you to have a lovely experience giving birth in a U.S. hospital, but you need to be prepared, and a birth plan is a great way to help with that, but it needs to be done the right way. And the right way doesn't involve a template, form, or checklist. It's really a process. And that's what I talk about in the class. So if you missed the class and you didn't register for it, you can actually catch the class on my IGTV or on my Facebook page. I'm on both of those at Dr. Nicole Rankins, and the recording of the class will be up until November 30th. It'll be up for a week and then it's coming down. After that, this class is going to become a paid class, actually. So just for this Black Friday week, it's being offered for free. I also share in the class, speaking of Black Friday, that the birth preparation course is on sale for Black Friday. So go to drnicolerankins.com/Black Friday, where you can grab the birth preparation course at 50% off. So do check that out there. All right, let's get into the episode with registered dietitian Steph Thank you so much, Stephanie, for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I am so excited to be talking about this topic, and I know the listeners are going to be excited to hear about it too.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and your work and your family if you'd like?
Absolutely. So I'm a Southern California girl, born and raised, and I actually knew that I wanted to study nutrition from a young age. I was 15
Oh, wow.
because I had gotten diagnosed with high cholesterol and started seeing a registered dietitian to help improve my health through diet and nutrition. And that was kind of the start of me being exposed to, this whole world of nutrition and health. And so, yeah, starting college, I dove right into the
Uh-huh.
field of nutrition. And yeah, now I live in Orange County with my family. I have two little girls, a 1 and a 3-year-old. And aside from working with pregnant women and having this aspect of my business, I also do work at a children's hospital with pediatrics.
Oh, nice, nice. Love it, love it. And I have two girls too, and they are 2 years apart as well. So
Oh my gosh. How's girl mom life?
it's good. It is good. And they are best of friends.
Oh,
So
I love that.
although they do argue sometimes, I will say. But for the most part, they are best of friends. Oh, all righty. So what training did you go through to become, and you are a dietitian, correct?
Yes, I'm a
Okay.
registered dietitian, and the training is you need at least an undergrad in, like, for me, my specific degree was food and nutritional sciences.
Okay.
Um, and from there, you go through an accredited dietetic internship program that is typically a year long, full time,
Mm,
where you get different experiences and exposures to all different areas of nutrition. So you would have like a clinical rotation, most likely in a hospital setting where you practice medical nutrition therapy. You have a food service rotation. You do rotations in other aspects of like the community. So potentially WIC, which is a women, infants, and children, or like working in a school district with like education for young kids in the school district. So lots of areas to get exposure to how you can practice as a dietitian.
nice.
And then you have to go through a national board exam. And once you pass, you become a registered dietitian. And then you have ongoing requirements for continuing education to maintain, up to date knowledge and research in the field.
I love it. It's important to know that this isn't just like, something that folks take lightly. It requires training and then ongoing training to stay up to date.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, what is the difference? Because I don't know this and I feel like I should, but I don't. But what is the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist?
That's a great question. So, like I mentioned, to become a registered dietitian, there's a lot of schooling and clinical practice, and taking a national exam to withhold your status or license as a registered dietitian. So for a nutritionist, at least in the state of California, there is no actual definition. So I think like if you can literally read a book on nutrition and refer to yourself as a nutritionist. So yeah, there's no classifying terminology for
Gotcha.
nutritionist.
Learn something new every day. I am glad I asked that question. Uh, Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of: omega 3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the US meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science backed, third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. So what made you decide to focus specifically on, and we'll talk about your Instagram. You have tons of great information there, guys. We'll link that all up, but focus on specifically nutrition and pregnancy.
Yeah. So, it really wasn't until I went through my own pregnancy that I had kind of thought so much about nutrition during pregnancy. Um, so, of course, when I became pregnant, nutrition during pregnancy was a really
Mm-hmm.
big research topic for me, just
Sure.
being in the field and caring about it. And so when I went through my own prenatal care, I was actually really surprised that nutrition really wasn't a big topic of discussion. And there would be things that I would research myself and, bring up in my appointments, or I would just like be curious how, my healthcare team was going to approach a topic on nutrition during pregnancy, and it was just really lacking. And of course I get it, because your appointment times are so limited, and of course the main focus is like the medical stuff. And so being in the medical field, like I totally get and appreciate that. Like I had a very great care when it came to my prenatal experience. However, there just wasn't the time or really that like in-depth involvement in the fact of nutrition. And so I was actually pregnant around the same time as a lot of my friends. And so a lot of friends would ask me questions, just knowing that I was a dietitian. And so it sort of just sparked this like passion inside of me to really dive deeper into nutrition during pregnancy, which we know is like such a critical time for not only like mom's health, but you're creating a life. And just knowing that how your diet and nutrition plays a role during pregnancy can actually impact the DNA expression and your child's like health trajectory throughout their life. And so that just like blew my mind and
Mm-hmm.
made me realize like there wasn't enough of this out there. And I just wanted to kind of share that knowledge with, other moms and moms to be, because if I wasn't receiving, this type of education during my pregnancy experience, I'm sure many others weren't as well.
So you are filling a very big void, and you're also, Steph, very nice, because with, the reality is like doctors don't know nothing about nutrition and pregnancy, and I'm sure you were probably like, they don't know nothing. Like, what do they even? Because we don't get trained on it. We don't get a lot of information on it, and we tend to rely on just like giving out a pamphlet or something. But the honest reality is that we just don't know a lot about it, and I'm sure you found that out through firsthand experience.
Yeah, well, of course. Like I know that in medical school, like nutrition is clearly not, the hot topic. So I get it, but
Even though it should be,
yeah.
because like nutrition in a way is like medicine. Like what you put in your body is really important. So, but we just don't get a lot of it.
I know. Maybe eventually there will be a little more overlap. But no, what also surprised me was just like that there weren't regularly dietitians involved in, many offices, or, like OB. Like I just feel like there should be more presence of dietitian support in, the medical, like part of your medical care especially in pregnancy.
100%. So speaking of that, when should someone consider seeing a dietitian? Should it be routine, or are there any typical circumstances where you really need to see a dietitian? And then is it typically covered by insurance?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I think really someone should start if someone is family planning, that's when you should start seeing a dietitian
Mm,
because so much of your diet pre-pregnancy can impact your egg quality, sperm quality. It can not only like help with fertility in general, but your nutrition for about 3 months actually impacts like the egg that is going to be implanted. And so that's just really fascinating and cool. But also, it takes a little bit of time for your nutrition stores to build up. And so there are
hmm
particular nutrients, especially in that early pregnancy, that are really important for babies' development early on. And, if you wait until you're pregnant to start focusing on nutrition, you could be missing out on, critical nutrition to prevent some early disorders like neural tube defects, for
Right,
example.
right, right.
And so by the time a lot of people find out they're pregnant, you're 4, 6, potentially even 8 weeks. And at that point, like that's when your neural tube attaches. And
hmm
so sometimes it's almost like a little too late at that point. So focusing on nutrition before pregnancy can help build up those nutrition stores that are required. And then also in that first trimester, a lot of people do have, aversions or nausea and really just don't want to eat many nutritious foods. Like you can only survive on maybe crackers, for example. And so by paying attention to nutrition before pregnancy, you can kind of already have those nutritional reserves built up for your body to pull from for baby. So before pregnancy is always a great time, but that's not always feasible.
Right.
Typically, you're only really referred to a dietitian in pregnancy if you have gestational diabetes.
Okay.
And so that will be covered by insurance. Usually, and I think a lot of is changing with insurance coverage, but
hmm
it has been that once you're diagnosed with something, that's when you'll get approval for dietitian visits, which is unfortunate because nutrition can really be a preventative. So we should really be preventing certain things as
hmm
much as possible through nutrition as opposed to waiting until you're already diagnosed with something.
Yeah.
But now it's actually really cool because with health savings accounts, HSA, and
Uh-huh.
FSA, we are able to accept. Typically, you just need a physician's like prescription or physician's like order that says it's approved to use FSA or HSA. But I've been able to work with clients using those accounts, which has been
Gotcha.
really cool.
That is good. Now, are there some other things? I know you said gestational diabetes. What about weight? What if you're either underweight or overweight? Will that qualify you for seeing a dietitian through insurance?
Yeah, so every insurance is different. So
hmm
it's hard to say because it depends on what insurance you have.
hmm
But typically, with physicians' orders, like if a physician was worried about weight and said, like, this is your prescription to go see a dietitian, I think
hmm
that definitely has more of an influence on insurance as opposed
Okay.
to just the individual wanting to go on their own.
Gotcha. 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 Okay. Okay. What about thyroid? That's the other thing that pops up in my mind. Anything like thyroid or anemia? Well, anything like that? I'm just trying to give folks some options for, for how they can try and get it covered
Yeah,
for
I
babies.
know. And I wish I had more specific answers. I'm not really sure actually if, insurance does cover specifically for
Things
thyroid
like
or
that.
anemia.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah. And it's,
um
it's something worth investigating to check out for sure.
yeah, exactly. And whatever insurance you do have, you can always call them and see, what nutrition services they will cover, especially during pregnancy.
Yeah, y'all, it's impossible for us to know on our side, like how every insurance option works because my God, there are a gazillion of them and they're all different. So definitely like give your insurance company a call and see because it's worth it even before your pregnancy and see.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. So let's get into some tips for a healthy eating during pregnancy. What are your top 3 tips that you like to share with folks for eating during pregnancy?
Yes. So one tip is if you're not necessarily feeling well or you're having aversions and like veggies just sound awful to you, smoothies are a great way to bulk up the nutrition in your meal
Mm,
while also being like an easy way to get down and enjoy. Like cold is always good. And so yeah, I love smoothies just because you can just really make a big impact on your nutrition in that one meal.
nice.
um, Another tip is fish. If you enjoy fish, consuming at least 2 servings a week can provide you with the omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA, which are super critical for baby's brain development. That can meet your needs.
And what types of fish? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, so like salmon is a good one, even like cooked shrimp, um, tuna. And with tuna, I would say avoiding like your albacore or big eye because those are going to be higher in mercury. But if you do like canned tuna,
Uh-huh.
skipjack or chunk tuna light, or are going to be your lower mercury options.
Gotcha. And we have gone back and forth about fish like 50,000 times, but fish is okay and safe to eat in pregnancy.
Yes, you do just want to be mindful of like the higher mercury fish. So that's going to be like king mackerel, swordfish, um, shark. So those you want to limit or avoid just because of the mercury content.
Yeah,
Same with like the bigger tunas,
got it.
big eye.
Got it.
Mhm.
And one more, what's another tip you have for eating healthy in pregnancy?
Yeah. So another tip is also eggs are an excellent
Mm,
form of choline. There's iron, there's B vitamins, protein. So eggs are just sort of one of those like powerhouse foods during pregnancy because of the nutrients that it contains, specifically in the yolk. So eggs are safe to eat every single day if it's something that you like and can tolerate. And so that would be one of like my pregnancy quote unquote superfood
right.
recommendations.
Right. Nice, nice, nice. Now, what are your thoughts about, because I get this question so much, what are your thoughts about prenatal vitamins and supplements?
Yes. So I think that it can be doable to avoid them if you like really can't tolerate them or are really against supplements. But if that were the case, um, I would definitely recommend working with someone specifically because you have to be a lot more diligent on your daily, diet and nutrition. So
Mm,
I am a big fan of prenatal vitamins. They are really more of like an insurance policy. They're not supposed to or going to replace a, overall healthy diet, but more
mm-hmm.
to supplement what may be lacking in your particular diet. And what's challenging is there are like literally thousands of
Yes.
prenatal vitamin options, but they are not created equal. So that's where the challenge is. But every person really is going to have slightly different needs based on what their particular diets are.
Mm.
So there are certain things to look for in a prenatal vitamin.
Oh, sure. Like what are some things you recommend?
Yeah, so choline is something that's not found in all prenatal vitamins, and our needs are really high in pregnancy and lactation.
Hmm.
And eggs, one of the reasons I love eggs so much is because eating 2 eggs a day meet half of your daily requirements for choline.
Okay.
And eggs and liver are pretty much your highest sources of choline. So that's something that is really challenging to meet your requirements in diet alone. And so something I really like to encourage people to be looking for in their prenatal vitamin.
Got it. Got it. Anything else about prenatal vitamins?
Yeah, looking for methylfolate versus folic acid just to help. There's actually estimated about 60% of people have this MTHFR genetic variant where your body can't utilize folic acid. And so the methylfolate would be, better utilized by the body. So not everybody knows if they have this variant. And so going for the methylfolate just off the bat, you won't have to guess and know that your body is getting the folate that it needs for prevention of neural tube defects.
I think that that's a bit of controversy, certainly,
It is.
for sure.
It is.
On our side, where physicians are still pretty much recommending folic acid because that's the data that we
Right.
know. So that one's a tricky one, I'll say.
It is. And, folic acid actually is like better absorbed by the body. It's just for those people who potentially can't utilize it. And it seems that that's a whole discussion.
Right.
But yes, folic acid has been, shown for years to help prevent neural tube defects. It's what's fortified in a lot of our foods like breakfast cereals and oatmeals and pastas and grains. And so it is very helpful in prevention of neural tube defects. So.
Yeah. So are there any supplements that you recommend in addition to prenatal vitamins?
So not usually unless it's like specific for a client based on their individual needs. So it definitely wouldn't be for like the masses. Also, if you don't eat fish regularly, like at least 2 servings a week, omega-3 fatty acids are your DHA supplement, EPA supplement are going to be something to include in your prenatal regimen. Also, vitamin D. The current guidelines and recommendations for 600 units a day seems to be pretty low. I always recommend my clients ask their physician to get a vitamin D level check so they know exactly where they are to supplement accordingly.
Yeah, a lot of us are more deficient in vitamin D than we realize because a lot of it comes from being in the sun, and we don't necessarily get out as much as possible. And especially, although we're getting out more with the pandemic, but even that has affected things. So yeah, definitely need to make sure you have the right amount of vitamin D.
Exactly.
All right. So, what are some misconceptions about eating during pregnancy, other than of course, there's the obvious one: you're not eating for 2.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You're not eating for 2. It's actually more like 1.2, I think. So, focusing more on the quality of your nutrition, not necessarily the quantity. Another misconception is that you have to eat perfect every single day. It's definitely not like that. I really like to look at it as more of like a week's average to make sure that you are meeting those requirements. But, some days you might be feeling like dairy and getting, a bunch of calcium in, and then other days you're not. And, ultimately, over like the course of a few days, a week, it should average out. But this is kind of also where that prenatal vitamin comes into play as that insurance. But it is not an expectation to eat quote unquote like perfectly every single day to still have optimal nutrition.
Yeah, definitely don't put that pressure on yourself. Because it's just impossible to meet that expectation that you're always going to be perfect with your eating.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts about the use of tracking your weight during pregnancy? Like how much focus or emphasis do you put on that?
So I personally don't put any. Through my own experiences and just from working with many, many pregnant women, people put on weight at different times throughout their pregnancies and put it on differently. I know that, also like being, a dietitian and focused in this field, I had this expectation that, like, okay, I didn't need to gain any weight in that first trimester because that's what the books say. And then after that, I should be gaining, a pound of wheat, like just based on what the books are and the guidelines. And that was just very far from what actually happened in reality. And so I think that my clients get, and just like the women that I talk to during pregnancy, get so focused on the specifics of like how much they're gaining each, visit, or when they're gaining. Like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't supposed to gain any weight during this time and I put on a few pounds and I'm, nervous this is going to set me up for, excess weight gain throughout my whole pregnancy. And so that's something like I talk about a lot, is just not putting that pressure, because it really happens so differently for everyone. And I think that gets a little bit challenging because my clients get overwhelmed, and it is a big focus of conversation in a lot of prenatal visits. And so that can be challenging and discouraging. And, for most people, it does average out at the end. People just put it on just so differently. You also want to consider too, like, weight is like, it's not like a linear thing and can fluctuate like so much, even just day to day. So, did you drink a bunch of water before you stepped on the scale? Did you, urinate before you stepped on the scale? Did you go to the bathroom that day? Those are just a few things that can really influence several pounds. So, unless you are weighing yourself like consistently at your appointments, like with the same, like it's never going to really equal out too. So, some of that may not be true weight gain either. So I don't put a big focus on that. And my main focus is really like, pairing your foods well, making sure you're feeling full and satisfied, listening to your body, and not, an expectation or a number that, the books say that you should be, eating per day, because that could also influence. There's been, and the recommendations, it's like you should be eating an extra X amount of calories per trimester. But again, this is completely variable person to person. And so if you are focusing on that number, you could be over or under fueling based on what your body needs.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I work as a hospitalist now, so I only work in the hospital. But when I did prenatal care, it was like, your weight is something we have to look at, but we're not going to obsess over it, because after 15 years, I know that people gain weight differently. Just like you said, some people they gain at different rates. There are some people, you guys may not want to hear this, but honest to God, there's some people who are going to gain 50 pounds. It doesn't matter what they eat. They just, during pregnancy, it just kind of happens. So focus on what you're eating, the things that you have control over, which is what you put in your body, and do your best with that. And then don't obsess over the scale, because it can be frustrating, for sure.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Like, focus on what you can control. And it's so true. Like, I've seen people eat, like just, pay attention to their nutrition, like their whole pregnancy. And, you still gain a certain amount. And yeah, certain bodies are just like designed to gain a certain amount to support carrying a baby. So,
Yep. So let's, as we're getting towards the end, I just wanted to touch on a couple of common conditions that come up, and if you have recommendations for folks who encounter these issues during pregnancy. So what are a couple of food choices for people who are vegetarians or vegans to help with nutrition during pregnancy?
Yeah. So, I think if you, depending on your level of vegetarianism, I know that can be a range for different people, but for vegetarians and vegans, I really do, especially vegans, recommend working with a professional who does, focus on vegan pregnancies, because your nutrition requirements are just so specific. And, there's a lot of nutrients that can't be found from plant-based foods. And so supplementation is just going to be, more critical for you. And then, when it comes to vegetarian, some foods that I would recommend if it's something in your diet, like eggs and fish. I know that's questionable depending on, some people who are classify themselves as vegetarian do eat eggs and do eat fish, or there's such a range, so it's hard to say. But eggs and fish, if that's something you can tolerate, I would, recommend to be a regular part of your diet.
Awesome. Awesome. And what about I guess beans and like chickpeas, beans in general? Is that
Oh
like a good
yeah,
source of
yeah.
protein?
Yeah, so that's a great source of protein and nutrients. They're not going to contain, certain, like just having a variety in your diet, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, like, you get different nutrients from different sources, right? So, yeah, beans are going to be, and beans and legumes and lentils, and those are going to be a great source of protein for you, and B vitamins, and um, fiber, and then of course a range of your fruits and vegetables, and um, depending on if you do dairy or not, you can have your Greek yogurt as a great source of protein there too, and calcium. So again, it's going to kind of depend on what your diet looks like there, but
Sure.
um, a variety. Opt for colorful plate to get different nutrients and different antioxidants from all the colors in your fruits and vegetables. So variety is key.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And you know what? This random question popped up in my head when you said milk. What do you think about quote unquote, like not not cow based milk? So like almond milk or soy milk or things like that. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah. So, for those who don't tolerate dairy, like, it's, obviously totally fine. A milk that I actually really like that's a dairy free milk is called Ripple. It's pea protein. And so it actually has as much protein as cow's milk.
Hmm.
And it is fortified with nutrients like vitamin B12 and your calcium, your vitamin D. And so like almond milk is very low in protein, and oat milk is very low in protein. Soy milk is a bit better protein wise, but you know, like cow's milk is a good source of protein. So if you are consuming it, like a big part of what I practice is having well balanced meals. So pairing your
Right.
carbs with your protein and fat at all times. It's going to help for blood sugar stabilization. It can help with nausea. It'll help keeping you full and satisfied. And so every time you eat, or, have a meal or have a snack, I definitely recommend having your carb and protein and fat. And so if you are having like that milk, might as well get, your protein and nutrition from it. And so one that I really like is called Ripple.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. Now, what about anemia during pregnancy? That happens fairly common.
Yes.
What are a couple of food recommendations to help with anemia, or a iron supplement that you think works particularly well, or people supplement recommendations, I guess.
Yeah, so your animal proteins, your meat sources are going to be the most bioavailable iron source, meaning your body absorbs it most readily. Um, and so, focusing on your meat proteins there. Other ways to help absorb iron better is cooking in cast iron. And if you are having like your plant-based sources of iron, like beans, is a good iron source, you want to pair it with something high in vitamin C to help absorption. So, for an example, if you have like beans and broccoli, broccoli is going to have like vitamin C. Or say you make like chickpea pasta, because, the chickpea pasta is kind of, the rage right now. I love it. You get your protein, your fiber, but it is made from chickpea, which is a bean and has iron. And then you pair it with your tomato sauce, which has vitamin C, that can help absorb that iron.
Nice.
You want to try to avoid drinking coffee or tea from having your high iron foods about an hour because it can inhibit absorption there. And same with if you are like, if iron is in your prenatal, you want to avoid having calcium with your supplement. So don't drink milk with your supplements because it can decrease iron absorption because calcium and iron do compete. So that's another thing too in your prenatal vitamin. Make sure it doesn't have iron and calcium because they do compete for absorption. Choose one or the other.
Good to know. Good to know. So as we wrap up, what is one of the most like frustrating parts of working with pregnant people in nutrition?
I would probably say just the symptoms, like, that women experience. And, there's so many tips and tricks that we can try to make a difference through nutrition and diet and lifestyle to help relieve some of those symptoms. But sometimes it's just, not feasible. And these women just struggle. And I feel like that's just so hard because you want to help them so bad. But like when they
Yeah.
can't, tolerate anything and so I think just also just having, being supportive during that time and that's just frustrating for me because, you just like feel like helpless.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think we all get into this work because we ultimately want to help people. And when you see people struggle, it's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the flip side, what's the most rewarding part of your work?
The most rewarding is just like when your clients like have their babies and everybody is happy and healthy and it's just like such a beautiful thing to be able to work with someone throughout their pregnancy as they're like growing this human and they are just wanting to do everything they can that's in their power, in their control to have a healthy pregnancy, ultimately have a healthy baby, and then to see that all the way through is just like the best. It's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure
Absolutely.
you can relate to that.
100%. 100%. So, what is your favorite piece of advice that you would give to expectant mamas?
So, and this can also play into like once you have your baby too, but really everything is just a phase. And, remembering that because when you're living it, it feels like you're in this, you know, hardship forever, but it all passes and then you're on to the next thing. But just kind of like remembering that it's a phase. So if you're feeling uncomfortable or you're feeling like, you have some nausea, like it will pass and, you will go on to the next. And that kind of plays into early motherhood too, or just motherhood forever. It's always a phase, good or bad.
I love that. That
But
is
it's a phase.
excellent. Yes, that is outstanding advice and so, so true. And it will definitely apply to parenting as well. All right. So thank you so much. This was a really informative conversation. Where can people connect with you? What other things do you offer that they can do? Let us know where can people find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is at pregnancy_nutritionist. And I am, after months and months and months of work, I just launched what's called Grow Baby Society. It's now a membership platform for moms and moms to be to, really gain confidence during their pregnancy, learn, all the foundations of pregnancy nutrition, work with me, have a community and network of other moms and moms to be during this, phase of life. So, connecting with people who have the same goals as you and are, pregnant and going through this journey together. And then, have the support when it comes to nutrition and health throughout their pregnancy journey. So
I love that.
you can find me on Instagram.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, definitely, folks, check that out. All right. Well, thank you so much again for agreeing to come onto the podcast. Super helpful information. I so appreciate chatting with you.
It was lovely today. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Didn't you find that episode useful? I found it very helpful, and I hope you have a couple of takeaways too to help you feel better about your diet and the things that you're putting in your body to grow your pregnancy and have a healthy pregnancy. Now, after every episode when I have a guest on, I do something called Nicole's Notes, where I talk about my top 3 or 4 takeaways from the conversation. So here are my Nicole's Notes from my conversation with Steph. Number 1, make sure whoever you are working with is trained and qualified, or at least you know what their training and qualifications are. So for example, I had no idea that anybody could really call themselves a nutritionist, and that a dietitian is a more rigorous training and certification and upkeep and things like that. And no shade to nutritionists, but you should know what you're getting into when you work with someone. So an area where this comes up within the birth space also is with doulas, because really anyone can call themselves a doula. It's not a regulated profession or field. So you really want to know that you have someone who has some training or qualifications, or you want to know what you're getting into. One of the things that I have inside the birth preparation course is a nice checklist of questions you can ask if you're considering a doula to help you understand what training and qualifications they have and what it will be like to work with them, helping to make sure it's a good fit. So you can, again, that's a part of the birth preparation course, and you can grab the birth preparation course right now for a Black Friday discount, 50% off. That's drnicolerankins.com/Black Friday. Okay. Number 2, I'm going to reiterate that doctors do not know much about nutrition. It's just not something that's emphasized in our training. I know it doesn't make sense that it's not, but it's just not. So we get very little education on nutrition, despite the fact that food in a way is kind of medicine, like it can be in terms of your health, but it's just not something that's emphasized in a Western medical system. Some of that has changed, I think, with more recent medical education, that has gotten better, but it's still not a prominent part of medical education. So don't expect that your doctor is going to know a lot about nutrition. Most often, they're just going to give you a pamphlet and tell you to read up on it. So if you think you want to know more, then explore your options for speaking with someone who is trained and can help you with your unique circumstances. Okay. And then the third thing that I'll say and emphasize is that supplements and vitamins are not a replacement for good food. Definitely focus on good food, as much natural. When I say natural, like as close to the ground as possible, minimally processed. You can read the ingredients on the label. Nothing that's like super complicated and long. Sometimes I see folks wanting to use supplements and vitamins to, kind of on a layer of a poor diet, and that's not gonna help. So I'm not saying you can't ever eat like anything quote unquote bad, like cupcakes or cake. Like I have a weakness for sweets, but overall you want a good, healthy, balanced diet, and you don't want to use supplements and vitamins as a way to replace eating good food. All right. So there you have it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now. And I'd love it if you leave an honest review on Apple Podcast in particular. I so appreciate what you think about the show. And speaking of what you think about the show, I'm collecting information, a kind of listener survey. I want to learn more specifics about who listens to the podcast. So you can go to drnicolerankins.com/survey, fill out a quick survey. And if you fill out that survey by November 30th, then you will be entered to win one of 4 $50 Amazon gift cards. So again, that's drnicolerankins.com/survey. So that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week. And until then, I wish you a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. Head to my website, drnicolerankins.com, to get even more great information, including free downloadable resources on how to manage pain and labor and warning signs to look out for after birth. You'll also find information on my free online class on how to make a birth plan that works, as well as everything you need to know about my signature online childbirth education class, the Birth Preparation Course. Again, that's drnicolerankins.com, and I will see you next week.